Nice.
Yeah,
So yeah, I read a little bit in your email where you kind of explained your experience with the illness and being into the awakening and the non-duality as well. So yeah, you can just we can just start
it's
diving
quite
in.
long. I was like, what am I going to say? I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a story, haven't they? So, but yeah, that pretty much sums up,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
So you
journey.
maybe talk a little bit about yeah, what you want to get into now or where you're at currently, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like, I'm so glad I came across non-duality because
Yeah.
I was going down that. Oh my God, I'm trying this, trying that, trying to heal, and I'm sure you went through it too. And
Yeah.
these people, it's you hear all these recovery stories, and maybe that'll be me, and then you buy the program or you
Yeah.
go to the practitioner, and it's yeah. I mean, I yeah, it was just I cr I can't I just cringe about the money I've spent on trying to heal. Like, it's
Yeah.
just like, all my savings have gone, like, I've got nothing left. I just live on a pension now, and
Yeah.
it probably had to happen that way to
Yeah.
really, like, basically lose everything completely
Yeah.
to
Strip
hit
it
that
all
rock
away.
bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was nowhere else to go, Like, I
Yeah.
just was so sick and no
Yeah.
money left. Um Yeah, just single mum on my own. So it was, and then I sort of had that, I've always done meditation, always been on the spiritual path.
Okay.
And then yeah, I was doing a group meditation with this guy in America, and that's when I had that experience of
Mm.
like everything just completely dissolving. It was
Mm.
just really, and I didn't know about non-duality then, and
Who was it?
um oh, what's his name? Oh God, he channels light beams.
Okay.
God, my brain just doesn't work.
I probably haven't heard of him. I was just curious.
It'll come to me later. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's in America, and it was just through a group healing meditation. So there was like a small group, and I remember I was so sick with COVID at the time. It was the only time I had COVID, and I was really sick. I was going to pull out of the meditation, but I already paid, so I
Right.
was just lying there feeling so sick, and probably it was probably good because I just sort of let go.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Exactly.
was probably I was at my worst, and I just had this really incredible, energetic, like a telepathic experience with this sort of white, beautiful angel. Like, all my eyes
Mm.
were closed, and it wasn't like I was imagining it. It was like a really telepathic experience. And this beautiful angel took my hand and said, "It's time to come home." And I was
Wow.
sobbing and sobbing, and I'm like, "What was that all about?"
Yeah.
Like, this is after, like, and I remember it was after the session, and that's when everything dropped away. Like,
Mm.
there was no identity or anything, and I was just in this so much peace. It was just unbelievable, to have that peace when you've been dealing with depression, anxiety for like decades, and
Yeah.
it was just this peace. I sat on the balcony, and I was just looking at all the trees, and because we live up like sort of on a hill, so I was just looking out, and I was completely connected to everything, like everything. Like, I understand what they talk about, like everything's one.
Mm. Mm.
You just completely connected, yeah, to everything. You just
Mm.
it's this I remember thinking, "Oh, I'm so sick with COVID, and that didn't matter, and like nothing mattered." It
Mm.
was like it was there, but there was no suffering. It was
Yeah.
just yeah, really. And I was still doing the simple things, looking after the kids and all that, but
Mm.
and then I woke up the next morning, and it's all gone.
This is
I
back.
was like, and then, yeah, then I was like, "Oh my God, what happened that?" And then I got on the journey of what was that all about, and
Mm. Okay. So that
came
was like
across
the
non-duality, and it was
entry.
like,
Yeah.
"Oh, so we're not separate," and that's what that was about.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And the last 2 years, but interesting since that, when I had that final sort of, I was listening to David Bingham, the
Okay.
guy from the okay, and he was helping people to realize their true nature, and then I suddenly realized by watching his videos that oh gosh, we're not separate, we're not, this is all an illusion, and
Mm,
once all that was starting to wake up in me,
mm,
um the next 8 months I just went through all this purging, like huge amounts of just purging, sobbing every
yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah,
It was so much that I just pushed down, it was
yeah,
just, I was like, oh my God. And then I thought, oh, then I read, oh, must be like the dark night of the soul. And
yeah, yeah. So that
uh,
experience with David Bingham, that was after that first kind of meditation experience.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I just sort of was trying to sort of work out what that was all about,
Mm,
and
mm,
just came across one of his videos, and
okay.
yeah, and just thought, oh, this is what non-duality is, and it's,
Yeah.
yeah, but and then the purging settled down, but um, still a lot of stuff that's coming up to the surface
Mm,
that wants to be released. And I'm
mm,
learning to. I worked with a practitioner last year for a while, just helping to work with all that suppressed
mm,
trauma, I guess, from childhood and stuff that I
yeah.
pushed down.
Cool.
I just
What kind of practitioner was it?
I worked with a lady. She's in Canada. She's a non-duality teacher as well, and she does the killer bee inquiries.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Heard of
I've
that?
heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I did that for like a good 8 months, and she
Oh
gave me a
yeah.
really cheap rate because she was just like, she was only a new teacher.
Yes, yeah.
But it was just like all this purging and purging, and I was just like, because you're trying to find where all the trapped emotions are,
Yeah.
and that was all happening, and I was purging a lot, but I still had this tight identity to,
Mm,
I am sick, I've got health issues,
right.
and it didn't help at all with that. It was just,
Right.
yeah, there was no trying to dismantle, like self-inquiry. You get in there and you really start dismantling the
Mm,
identities, and that's what I'm now finally realizing is like the core of it
mm,
is this that constant, self-inquiry,
yeah.
the thoughts, the identity, and oh, this sensation, oh, I'm sick again. Today I've had another reaction to a supplement, and I'm like, oh, and you start sort of going on to that spiral into, oh God, I've got symptoms again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's harder to do self-inquiry when you have those really tough days.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, just from watching, like, a lot of your videos have been so helpful, that it's just so important to yeah, look and feel everything, and
Yeah.
and be with everything.
Mm,
Mm, yeah, I've really, especially last 2 months, I've really started to, like, self-inquire all the time.
okay.
It's
Yeah.
question, just questioning everything all the time. And it's, yeah, like, nothing's shifted in my symptoms or anything yet, but I'm finding that, like, the anxiety and things are starting to settle a bit.
Mm,
Um, yeah, because I have really bad anxiety every day, and
okay.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so and I know, look, it's a really gradual dismantling process.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
It can be intense. Like you said, especially on the tough days. It's like it taught me so much about like what surrender really means, like no matter uh
oh yeah,
what strategies you come up with when your body's completely overwhelmed, your body's completely overwhelmed, and it's just like brings you to your
yeah,
knees really, like, and just like, okay, wow, it's like I just got to, like you said, be with it and like let it
yeah,
let it show me what it needs to show me. But it can be yeah, a lot. Yeah.
yeah. It's yeah, I just find it really hard to lose all the identity that I've created around,
Mm.
like, this illness,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
well, so-called, you know,
yeah,
because it's been sort of dominated, my life for the last 8 years, and haven't been able to work or do anything else. So
yeah,
been like this big identity, and it's
Yeah.
and I'm yeah, just starting to really chip away
Yeah.
at that, with looking at your thoughts and
Mm,
writing, journaling, things that are coming up.
yeah.
Because I different things come up. Like yesterday, I was feeling into the fatigue, and I started crying, and it was like there's something. The belief came up. There's something wrong with me, and that
Mm,
that comes up a lot. That
mm,
there's
mm,
something wrong with me, um, and I think because yeah, I think sort of growing up, my dad was a real workaholic, and like mum left when I was 6, so I didn't have mum around. So
mm,
dad was like, "You just got to work hard to survive."
mm.
So that sort of program is really stuck in my mind that I've got to
Yeah.
work hard to fix myself,
Yeah. Yeah.
and otherwise I'm just broken. I keep telling
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard one to break because yeah, like when you can't do it, like you got to lie down 6, 7 hours a day, and you can't do things with my kids, and it's
Yeah.
all the guilt comes in, and it's just
Yeah.
that story of I'm a bad mother, and
Yeah.
so it's really I'm finding those ones are the hardest ones to yeah chip away at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still
Yeah.
dealing with it. Yeah,
It's those ones can be the deepest ones, like the ones around yeah, that's kind of where the identity sits on top of almost is the feelings of shame and um not being enough, because it's almost like it's on top of a um I don't are you familiar with Angelo DeLillo's stuff at all?
yeah, I love his work. Yeah,
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 yeah, it's great.
I've got his book too. Yeah, so
Yeah, it's
yeah,
really good. I love it. And
yeah,
I once was like in a group session with him, and he was working with somebody through the experience of shame, and he broke it down in a really great way, which was bringing it back to the kind of fundamental fear of I am not, right? So it starts with like all these other stories, which is like I'm not loved, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, right? But if you come back to it, it's it's actually the core experience that's really the identity is built on top of is just sitting with that feeling of I am not, because the identity will cling onto um any kind of story or narrative like from our past that's going to make us into something, if that makes sense, because the
yeah, yeah.
the pure
Non
experience of like not being is like that's the root of it. So yeah, it's it's a lot to be with, but when those stories start to come up, it's going in the right direction. Yeah, it's like it's getting to the roots basically. Yeah, and the guilt, just kind of being with guilt um leads to a lot of freedom later on as well, because it's like there's nothing you no longer, because for so long we've acted and built identities to get away from these feelings, so it's like we'll
yeah,
do anything to not feel guilt, we'll do anything to not feel shame. Now you're in the situation where you can't do anything but feel the shame and feel the guilt, and
I know.
it can be
You
a lot.
you're just you're forced to. You can't
Yeah,
go off and work or anything.
exactly. So that's the kind of Ajashanti said it before as well, the kind of the fierce grace of the situation, where it's like it's fierce and it's brutal, but it's grace all the same, in that it's giving you no choice but to really get in touch with that kind of, yeah, the stuff that's been there all along.
Yeah, there's a lot of shame. Shame comes
Yeah.
up a lot too, that shame, and, especially since, being a mother too, because my
Mm,
mum left, so she just walked out on us. So,
mm,
yeah, I've got this I need to be a good mother sort of identity, and
mhm.
sort of yeah, it's really, yeah, it takes over. But you've got to yeah, as you say, you've got to feel everything and
Yeah.
be with everything, and
Yeah, how are
but
you
then
able to like navigate it when the shame comes up, you know? Are you like,
Yeah, it's usually when I feel into sensations, that's
yeah,
where all the emotions are.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and like something's coming up and I'll just sit with it and sometimes nothing will happen.
yeah,
Like today I was sitting with, you know, with my symptoms and that and nothing was coming up and then the mind was going, oh, this is not really working. And
mm,
yeah, because it's like, oh no, emotions are coming up. So you think there's nothing happening. But
yeah,
because your mind wants to see something for its work it's doing, it's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
it, oh,
It's
yeah, you just,
it's another form of resistance. I actually it came up in a session with somebody else recently where he was like, uh, the emotion or the sensation that he found the most difficult was no sensation or like no emotion. You
yeah,
know, it's like the mind can have resistance to that neutral feeling as well. So that's
yeah,
pretty common, is to just like, oh, okay, well, what's wrong with this experience of nothing happening right now? And then you can see there's an expectation or a belief or a judgment somewhere in there that's saying, right now I should be releasing an emotion, or, you know, this experience is not right unless something is changing. And it's like, oh, wait,
yeah,
I'm just, there's just some resistance in there to this experience as it is. But if I can just see that this is the experience as it is, um, but the
yeah,
resistance is there, so like it needs to come up, you know, but it's just to kind of um, see behind it, basically.
yeah. And the more you be with the resistance, it starts, is that when it sort of starts to soften and
Absolutely, yeah. It's
yeah,
just being with that experience. It's kind of taking it from the subconscious background where it's kind of been running the show all this time, whereas now you're seeing it for what it is, right? You're holding space with it, bringing it basically into this. That's kind of why the dark night or the shadow work follows like that initial expansive experience of consciousness, because now you have the awareness to bring everything in, right? So it's like all your
yeah,
resistance is going to come up, all your shame is going to come up, because you're now able to um, put it in the space, or it comes into the space, and that's how it's kind of processed and released. So yeah, it's a good point to remember that even if you're sitting in your experience and all there is resistance, that's fine. You know, like the fact that resistance is now
yeah,
in the foreground. A lot of people get caught up in it, like, I shouldn't be resisting my experience, but then that's just resistance fighting with resistance, you know?
yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And another thing I used to get caught up in is, you know, being the observer
Yeah.
is imagining that you are actually, there's an identity of an observer. And
Yeah.
I was sort of getting a bit stuck in, oh, there's no observer here.
Yeah.
There's just experience. And I was listening to someone today talking about that. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, because it's that the mind just wants to grab onto something, isn't it? It
Exactly.
it's like, well, how can you just, yeah, not exist?
Yeah.
It's really yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good
Yeah,
it's a good one. The observer becomes its own yeah, its own paradigm. You know, it's like it's a helpful pointer. Like I know Eckhart Tolle and guys like this point to like be the observer, and it's a helpful pointer, I think, until a certain point when that has to go as well. You know, and then it's
yeah,
because it's like you said, it's also it's trying to hold distance from the experience itself, and when we start to go deeper, we're really closing that gap to um yeah, there's nothing separate from this experience, but it's it's almost it's easy to notice that in the expansive state, right? It's like, oh, there's no separation, there's no
yeah,
distance, but it's like now life's like, okay, cool, now let's go to all that stuff that's been resisted, and can you find non-separation in the experience that you're most afraid of, you know?
yeah,
So like that observer
yeah.
goes as well, yeah.
So there's really basically only experience, is it? And it's just the mind that comes in and creates this whole illusion. Is that's
Yeah,
basically how,
yeah,
and just because I mean, they also keep coming back to your
yeah,
direct experience, and because that's all there is. And
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I would.
it's,
That's how I would agree with that. That it's like, yeah, and you can only realize it by but coming back into your direct experience and then seeing when the mind starts turning it into something and then coming back to direct experience and then yeah seeing that um any anything added on top is a thought. So it's like Angela's explained it quite nicely before, that you start going into almost like pre-conceptual thoughts that are creating um the world, and that are creating like all of these things that you're not actively thinking it, but it's like the thought of like distance and the thought of like anything that the mind is doing, creating objects, creating people, an observer, like a feeling of being somewhere in experience. um yeah, but it's a lot like, I feel like the energetics of that dissolving, um it has to kind of play out in time. Otherwise, it's almost too intense for the nervous system, as we experience when it comes out like in the body like this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Like I've experienced it where in certain situations there will still be like an energetic experience of like me here, and in certain situations it will be more open. So I guess it unfolds how it does, but no matter how it is unfolding, like you mentioned, the pointer is always to come back to direct experience and see what is a
Mm.
thought, and that gets kind of subtler and subtler. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess even coming back to when you're having the terrible symptoms and whatever, even just coming back to that is probably
Yeah.
the most crucial time to do it, isn't it? When you're
Yeah.
really in the uncomfortable stuff. And
Yeah, because it's a like direct experience is very obvious then. It's not,
yeah,
um, as challenging as it is, it gives you something to go into. It's like, okay,
yeah,
um, yeah, what, and it's a helpful time to reveal resistance. Like I always find when things are feeling particularly intense, it's like, uh, what okay, so there's this experience of intensity or whatever it is of overwhelm, but can I get closer and closer to that, um, the the rawness, but also like where is actually the discomfort located? Like
yeah,
I can turn it
yeah,
into a symptom. I understand that, and we also don't need to bypass it. Like that's another thing that can easily happen with like the non-duality is just like, okay, yeah, this like we can bypass it, but it's like no, there's a lot going on in the body. It's intense. It's
yeah.
like
My God, yeah.
it's intense, but we can
I
still
know.
investigate it. Yeah,
Yeah, I know. It's just some teachers go, "Oh, well, it's just a thought, and
yeah,
sensation's just a thought," and all like, well, yeah, when your body's like having tremors, and yeah, like
yeah,
you need guidance through that because
yeah,
it's just so intense, and
absolutely.
so
And yeah, the
yeah,
bypassing is just not actually helpful at all in that stage.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because yeah, I joined a nervous system regulation program.
Okay.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
about months ago. Oh, it's a nervous system and brain retraining
Yeah.
program. It would be your own medicine. It's
Okay. I haven't heard of it.
yeah. Oh, she does brain retraining and nervous system regulation,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was good, and I'm only about a third of the way through it, but I stopped doing it because I thought maybe I'm just trying to focus on fixing myself too much,
Yeah.
uh, and I thought no, I'm just staying with the non-duality,
Yeah.
feeling, being more present, just yeah, because then I like, I get really tired and I can't concentrate and do the course
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then and then someone else has got another course and
Yeah.
you end up just going, "Oh, I need this, I need this, I need this," and then you just get so overwhelmed and
Yeah.
yeah, that's what happened the last few months. Because some non-duality teachers had, free courses or really
Mm.
cheap ones.
Mm.
So you can't keep signing up and then it's just like, well, I don't know what to do anymore because it's
Yeah.
just you're trying to that's just all the mind though, isn't it? The mind.
Yeah. But
Trying
it's
to
like you can have compassion for that as well, because it's like it's trying its best, like to like that's
I know.
yeah. I think it's completely natural to, want to try the nervous system regulation stuff as well. But as you said, if it's feeling like it's too much or it's overwhelming, then just being with that as well, like, okay, it's too intense.
Yeah.
Like for me, that's part of the bypassing as well. It's happened in my own experience. It was like, oh, I don't even need to like care about my nervous system anymore with like exercise and food and health and like, it's all just whatever. It's all just non-duality. It's happening on its own, blah, blah, blah. And then it was
Yeah.
like looking after the nervous system as best as I can supports the process as well, so that's
Yeah.
so yeah, anything that can support the nervous system, I would say goes alongside it, but
Yeah.
obviously feeling into like what's actually working.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of people with chronic fatigue and pain issues say it's a mind body issue. You get
yeah,
stuck in this pool of symptom reaction, and
yeah,
yeah, that was really interesting learning about that. And
yeah,
is it Dr. Sano who
yes,
talk about, yeah, pain, but it's the same for fatigue and
yeah,
everything. Is get stuck in this like loop
yeah,
where you just sort of creating your own symptoms, like the
yeah,
brain's creating your own symptoms. And yeah, that was interesting because I started getting sick after all this stress. I went
yeah,
through a lot of like the breakup, and then we got sued and lost everything, and then it was just like, yeah, that's just when everything, I think my body just collapsed, and that's when
yeah,
the chronic fatigue started and everything else. But
yeah,
yeah, so it's interesting to learn that about how your mind's so powerful as well, and it just
yeah. I think that's like a helpful part of the puzzle as well, is to understand, um, yeah, that kind of that link. It's almost like a safety thing as well, where
yeah,
the nervous system, the brain finds itself in a situation where it's completely overwhelmed, and then it kind of it gets like stuck in that state of seeing everything as like too much, so it like continually creates these symptoms in the body, and yeah, and then it kind of just gets so reinforced. So that's why I say like understanding the nervous system side of things, I think, is helpful as well. What my, I continue to play with like mixing approaches and stuff, and I feel like the being with the sensations um, is part of that reprogramming process as well. The kind of like the process in the shadow work or whatever um, is, and maybe like a helpful orientation to mix the two. Like what I would often do is. Um, like really reinforce in the mind that it's safe to be with that experience no matter how intense it is, and that's kind of how I feel like you're doing both sides of it at once, where it's like, okay, um I'm just being with the sensation and the direct experience of it, which is kind of like the awakening side of things. And at the same time, I'm no longer running from it, and like the mind is like afraid of the symptoms, which kind of keeps us in that stress bound up state. So it's more like um, actually teaching that it's safe to have this experience. And at the same time, I think what can be helpful is to talk to the part of um, the nervous system or the brain that is uh, feeling the most triggered, or that is feeling, the one that is kind of uh, always activated, that's generating the symptoms, and to just say like, hey, you can take a break now. Like it's kind of what we were saying earlier, like that compassion for the mind that wants to solve a problem. It's the same with like the illness side of things. It's like the brain that's trying to keep us safe. It's like, um, thank you for what you're doing, because I once got like, and once understanding that was like trying to fix that part of the brain, where it was more like using
yeah,
compassion and acceptance and gratitude to like, thank you for what you're doing. You're trying to protect me. You're trying to keep me safe, but um, just take a break. Just kind of rest. And I feel like mixing that with being with the symptom itself, and like, okay, thank you for the symptom. Like, you're trying to keep me safe. You're trying to look after me. Um, I feel like it mixes the approaches nicely. Yeah.
yeah, it is. And I was listening to your interview with Daniel Van Loosbeck.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that was really interesting because he's got a CFS
Yeah.
course as well. Yeah. which sounds really interesting, but I just can't afford it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a lot about, releasing the suppressed emotions
Yeah.
and yeah, it all
Yeah.
because I think I'm gonna sign up for another course. I'll just stay with what I'm doing
Yeah.
and that's it. It's just we're trying to we can just complicate everything too much, isn't it? Like too many
Mm-hmm.
courses.
Mm-hmm. Like it's yeah, it's like the next. It's like there's going to be a secret ingredient in one of the courses or something, which is going to make the process easier. Which is not to say that like I think we can learn very helpful techniques and all of that, but I agree with you that uh, you can learn the approach, and then it's like okay, it's being being with what is. I like I like Daniel's approach as well. It's very much about getting to the core of the kind of emotion and the symptom, and then it kind of releases itself, which I would say is the best because it's not a complicated mental strategy,
Yeah, yeah.
which can trip us up. Yeah.
And did you come across non-duality first, or did you get sick first, or?
I got sick first. Yeah, so
Oh,
I was like not had no interest in like spirituality or not even
oh, really?
meditation or anything. I was studying economics in at university. But I was like uh I was
Mm.
suffering, just like mentally suffering, just like don't like all these thoughts around. I'm not myself. I'm like, what does it mean to be myself? Like, I know I wasn't. Yeah, I would say like I had social anxiety and all these kinds of things. But I was trying really hard in life, just trying hard to be get it right, whatever.
Yeah,
Um, and
yeah,
then I got sick, and then I started meditating to help with my symptoms, and then eventually that led me kind of to non-duality, where I got really interested in it because this was the first time I was hearing. So I got interested in like philosophy. I was like, what is this experience of existing actually all about?
yeah.
So I was reading physics
Ah,
and philosophy and like trying to understand it from an intellectual point of view. Um,
yeah,
and then I heard like yeah, people from the meditation side talking about this like experience of um interconnectedness, like this experience of like understanding the universe from an experiential point of view. So I was like, okay, whatever it takes, I got to I got to do that.
yeah.
And then I just started meditating a lot and listening to pointers a lot, and yeah, things started to shift for
Yeah.
me.
And then your symptoms started to really shift after that, was it?
Yeah,
Doing the more meditation and
yeah, I was doing a lot of yeah, so that's why I was like mixing a lot of approaches. So I kind of found myself um it was, up and down and challenging this and that. But eventually I would say the like period where I was making the most progress was where I was like living on my own, and I was just doing like compassion, a lot of compassion based meditations, and um yeah, like going deep into just the experience of the breath. And like this was calming the mind a lot. And then I was spending a lot of time in nature. And yeah, then eventually I had like one of these shifts where um, it just was so clear that I was not my mind at all. And that kind of broke the cycle, I would say, of the symptoms. But I feel like everybody's plays out differently because like since then, it's been like sometimes there'll be patches where it's like, oh, okay, this like there's still been a lot to process. There's still been a lot of emotions, a lot of periods where I was just like, okay, I got to slow down a little bit with life because, and that's where I learned. Like I had this experience of like, okay, cool, like there was all just in my mind, like um and it was like I think with that release there was this freedom in the mind and the body, but then I was learning that I can push my nervous system too hard again. And also if I personally I need to meditate a lot just to be in kind of stillness and have that as like a part of my life when I've had periods of busy traveling or this or that, then I've actually um I had to slow down and be like, okay, there's just too much going on. So um yeah, it continues to unfold.
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because I've had like little glimpses where I don't know, it was probably about a month ago. I was just lying on the lounge and feeling into my sensations, and I had this overwhelming compassion and
Yeah.
acceptance.
Yeah.
It was so it only lasted probably, I don't know, 5 or 10 seconds, and it
Okay.
was just like it was just enough to shift me and go, "Wow, this is." It was a
Mm.
bit like that experience I had
Yeah.
before, but just only a few seconds, and it was like, "Oh, that's it. That's that." And it was like, "Wow, I'm completely like accepting myself." Like,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, little sort of glimmers of like those experiences, and
Yeah.
one day I was just sitting downstairs looking at out of the trees, and everything looked like a different type of green. Everything had
Mm.
like different colors that I hadn't actually experienced before. And
Mm.
it was like there was like another dimension that was happening in the foreground, in the
Mm.
background. Really weird. It was just like probably, 10,
Yeah.
15 seconds. I was just looking at the view. Yeah, in a different sort of dimension. It was
Yeah. Yeah.
really, yeah, I'm just sort of getting those little glimmers
Yeah.
that come in, and then yeah. It's or I was looking at, I've got a picture up on the wall, and it just sort of kept going. The picture kept going. Like there was
Mm.
just kept like it had another dimension. Like it
Mm.
was
Mm.
because it's a scene, but the scene just kept going. It was
Mm.
really
Mm.
'cause I spent a lot of time just like lying around and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
being with stuff. So things I guess start to, you know,
Yeah.
shift, and I'll probably look back and go, "Wow, that chronic fatigue was the best thing that ever happened to me."
Yeah. Yeah.
Just it just yeah, I just see it now as this is gonna be my learning experience, and what I had to go through, yeah, to
Yeah.
bring me to where I am, because my life's always been with fear and anxiety, and always had anxiety and
Yeah.
depression, and yeah, struggling in relationships and psychiatric hospitals, and
Yeah.
always just had those underlying fears. So,
Mm.
yeah, I think it's finally all coming up. It's just like, no, you just can't
Yeah.
carry this anymore. It's just, yeah,
Yeah.
it's too much. And yeah, I get a lot of tremoring, body tremoring. I
Mm.
went through months and months where I was releasing emotions and my body was just shaking, and
Mm.
that was really intense because it was like, oh my God, what the
Yeah,
hell's
it's
going on
scary.
here? Yeah,
It was, I know, but it's really good. Like the tremoring is really, yeah, it's like the body's and the nervous system's natural way to um help to process like trauma and repressed emotion and everything. Like a lot of, I don't know if you've heard of it, but a lot of people specifically do like tremoring exercises to help like release
yeah,
things from the body. So
yeah,
yeah.
I realized. Yeah, you can actually do it on yourself, and
Yeah, yeah. So,
yeah,
but I can
it's quite.
imagine, like, I know a lot of people that you don't know what's going on, and then it's just like really confusing if it's
Yeah,
happening on its own.
yeah. It
Yeah,
was, because I get a lot of tremors from food reactions and all that. So,
right.
but this was coming out from all the purging of all the emotions, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was really the first sort of 8 months. I had to go down to the garage with a pillow, and I was just sobbing. I was just like, I want my mum. All that was coming out, like
Oh wow,
all of this
yeah.
stuff that I just suppressed. Because dad didn't want to know about emotions or no, no, no.
Mm.
He had 6 kids to look after on his own. So
Right. Yeah.
I was the youngest. So I just learnt
Okay.
you just got to work hard, and you got to not express yourself. Just
Mm.
bottle everything up and work hard,
Mm.
and that's what I've taken through life,
Yeah.
and just work my whole life, and not being able to work now that's been the hardest,
Yeah.
because that was giving my ego that identity,
Yeah.
and not being able to work. It's like, yeah,
Mm.
it's really. You say to a lot of people, imagine if you couldn't work, and they'd be like, "Oh no, I
Yeah,
can't
right.
go." But it's a big thing, like
Yeah.
working, it's, having to live on like Centrelink, which is the pension, whatever, in Australia.
Mm.
It's a real, deflation to the ego. It's
Yeah.
really,
No, it is. I mean,
Yeah,
we don't realize how much we're just keeping the mind occupied all the time and giving it something to do. And when we really take that away, it's like it's really intense because firstly, we're not used to it, and secondly, it's like you really start to see like what's been going on underneath all along. Where it was like um,
yeah,
also the mind resists everything, right? If it's working, it wants to not work. If it's not working, it wants to work. It's like
yeah,
that kind of paradigm as well. But yeah, with like
yeah,
all the emotional stuff, um, yeah, I can totally see why um, this kind of experience of being ill is so powerful, kind of on the path because it's also the only way that all of this comes out. Um, and it's like life's intelligent in this way that it gives us when the disintegration aspect of this process needs to happen, then it will rearrange itself so that we're in an environment where we can, because it's like you were saying, like all these experiences of seeing through the visual field in a different way. Like it's an intense energetic shifting for the whole nervous system, and it's like that side of things, like you're opening up to this whole different way of perceiving the world and getting glimpses of things, and now you've got all this emotional trauma from like your whole life, and it's just like life's just like, okay, you need to kind of just be removed from from the
yeah.
world for a little bit.
Yeah, it
um
is. You certainly become
yeah,
very isolated,
yeah,
with chronic fatigue. It's
yeah,
because you don't want to share it, and you can't do anything with people or friends or whatever. So
yeah,
it gets very isolating.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but that's the best thing for this journey,
Yeah,
and it's interesting
that's
how a lot of people they go through these big losses, they lose everything, and then
yeah.
then they go through their awakening, and it's like it sort of it has to happen. Everything's got to be removed from you or taken away from you,
Hmm.
like the fact that
Hmm.
I didn't own a house anymore, that took me years to get over that.
Oh, really?
When we lost our house,
Yeah,
because we got sued and we lost everything, and I just couldn't cope with that. I just couldn't cope with having to rent, and
yeah,
yeah, it was a really and then getting sick, it was like, oh my God, another thing you could have, yeah,
yeah,
it was like, well, there's nothing less left that I can lose, like,
yeah,
except, death, but,
yeah,
it's just, I've been completely stripped back to, yeah, like, there's nothing my ego can grab onto,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
so,
It it's
yeah,
that's why it's like it's more powerful than any single teacher can like point you to, or anything like that. Angelo's often said this. I've heard him say it, like disruption is the most powerful catalyst for awakening, because that's when the ego's whole world just kind of starts to get like pulled apart. When any, like you said, big loss or yeah, any kind of tragedy in life, it's like it pulls the rug, and then the layers start to drop if we're set up for that.
yeah,
And some of us are. And it's like you said as well, um, the thing is, like most people are running towards death, like you said, like this whole life of like um, keeping busy with that, holding on to that, holding on to that, and then it all has to go in the end in any case, right? So
yeah,
it's like this is a
yeah,
gift in like, yeah, losing everything beforehand, and then um, you can live the rest of your life in a different way of like non-attachment. But if there is still anything that, because it often surprises us where the ego will try to, you know, have a stand or a landing point, then
yeah,
that will probably get wiped as well.
yeah, yeah. I think the last thing that the ego's attached to is like the symptoms and the illness
Yeah,
and
yeah,
diagnosis.
yeah.
Yeah, and luckily I've got a really good doctor who's actually on the non-duality path, which is
No
very
ways.
rare.
That's insane.
That is very, very rare. And she's been my doctor for like 8 years. And I didn't know this about her until sort of a couple of years ago, and I started talking about it and the experiences I was having, and she started opening up about it, and,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, "Wow." Now we have these I don't go in there for trying to heal myself. It's like going to a psychologist now. It's like
Yeah,
we
yeah.
talk about really deep stiff stuff that's happening, and it's really
Wow.
good. Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it's really
incredible. Yeah, yeah. I feel like
yeah, I
my
just
doctor would like recommend me to a psych ward if I try to explain these kind of things.
oh, yeah, most people would. Yeah.
That's really cool, honestly. Wow. I think,
Yeah,
yeah.
she's been very supportive because nearly to every time I go in there, it's just I'm in tears or I can't walk
Mm,
or I'm just having a complete meltdown and,
mm,
yeah, no, she's really good, and, she recommended me to see someone that does internal family systems as well.
mm. I've
Yeah,
heard
so I did
about it.
that
Yeah.
internal families, and that was interesting looking at, the different parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just couldn't afford it anymore. Everything costs money, so I just thought, "No, no,
Mm,
I'll just what I know, what I'm learning,"
mm.
and there's so much good information on YouTube with different and I just listen to Angelo a lot, he's so good, and his meditations and,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I feel like every video he puts out is like a gem in its own because he's just like it's so clear and yeah, able to if such a for me like the one of the most experienced uh, or like nuanced understandings of the process. I've learned so
Yeah,
much from him. Yeah.
you can really relate, like, Rupert
Yeah.
Spira's good and all that, but I don't know, there's some teachers there's other teachers too that really take you into what you can relate to in your life and
Yes.
how you
Yeah.
use it. There's a guy called he's from the UK, Saja Fendel.
I haven't heard
Yeah,
of him.
yeah, he's really good. And another guy from the UK, Corinne Bryant,
No, I don't
or
know.
Borin. Yeah, they don't have big following or anything,
Okay, yeah.
but really, like, you can just get some really useful stuff out of
Yeah.
some of these newer teachers because
Yeah.
they're sort of came from the trenches, and gone through
Yeah.
some really tough stuff, and yeah, and a lot of like either addictions or illnesses or
Mm.
something, been through. So it's yeah,
Yeah,
um,
that's often the most helpful is somebody that yeah has these really relatable uh experiences and
yeah,
that's what I find beautiful in like more and more people waking up and kind of sharing it is you have yeah people that are gonna be almost specialized in certain areas, whereas kind of the same
yeah,
with me being able to try and mix the non-duality with the chronic illness stuff. I've heard Angela was talking once with a lady that was busy waking up and kind of like you said, she was like she'd suffered from really intense alcoholic addictions. And it was like now she can help people in that space as well, So I feel like that's the
yeah,
um, yeah, as kind of life wakes us up in all these different areas, it's like um kind of
yeah.
letting us mix together different aspects of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and, I just I'd love to be able to work again and help people,
Yeah.
and I just always thought when I get better, I wanna help people overcome chronic fatigue. I didn't know
Yeah.
how it was gonna happen, but I just thought just after being through it for so many years, and
Yeah.
you do wanna help people and then, you've got the experience and you've
Yeah.
been through it, so yeah, yeah, I don't know, don't know how it's all gonna unfold, but I know I'm on the right path now. So,
Yeah.
and I threw all my supplements out and I stopped all the trying different diets and
Yeah.
different devices that you get to stimulate vagus nerves and all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
tried, or ozone therapy, tried IVs. I was doing IVs and
Yeah.
just like nothing. I think my body was just saying, like, stop.
Stop.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything was just making me so much worse,
Yeah.
and now I can only eat 5 or 6 foods. So, but yeah, hopefully as I progress, I can start eating more foods and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and not reacting because my body was just yeah reacting to everything. All I eat is chicken, rice, and 4 different veggies, and that's all I
Okay.
can eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because my body was just yeah, I don't know, it was just reacting. It was so stuck in fear and anxiety. I think
Hmm.
it was everything was a threat. So
Yeah.
same with supplements and all that. So
Yeah, I think it's quite common. Like I've spoken to a lot of people that get the really intense food intolerances. I had aspects of it as well. For me, it was actually more from like the fear of, uh, like I just cut out so many foods because I was just afraid. Like it was more from like a fear aspect. I was just like, um,
yeah,
hoping that the less, if I could find the perfect combination of foods that would clear all my symptoms. Um, and yeah, then when I started to do the kind of other work, um, then I experimented. So like that's something you can try, but also I wouldn't, yeah, like wouldn't force it, but just like small reintroductions and then kind of um retraining the response in a sense like, okay, this is, I understand why there's fear, I understand why there's a reaction happening, but it's safe. It's okay. Um, yeah, but
yeah,
it's funny. I went back personally to eating like all different foods and all of that, and then I often find myself like just wanting to come back to like a simple eating very
yeah,
few foods because there is so much that's just like highly processed and like all this kind of stuff, So it was
yeah,
always like I can't wait to get back to eat everything again, and I allowed myself to, and it was nice. But at the same time, it's like with anything, like we keep on projecting um like onto that experience when it's like, and I think it's good to work through all of that stuff, but it's like it's not often what the mind imagines it's going to be, and I often um and I
yeah.
find myself coming back to just what feels best for the body, and it's often very simple. Yeah. Yeah.
It is, yeah. Just listen to your body. I mean,
Yeah.
I was seeing different naturopaths, and they were all putting me on these different supplements and diets, and I was just reacting to everything. And I just
Yeah.
thought, I just can't even do naturopaths anymore. It was just
Yeah.
everything. My body just couldn't. They couldn't believe I was reacting to everything, even the
Yeah.
smallest,
Yeah.
doses of things. But yeah, it was just all, when your body's got so much anxiety in it, it's
Mm.
no wonder it's just going to react to
Yeah. Yeah,
to,
exactly.
to food and that because so that's when I realized no, I just got to really start calming the nervous system down and
Yeah.
doing the more meditation,
Yeah,
more
just
being
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 able to,
with being and feeling. Yeah. Yeah, and then
yeah,
and then
and
I feel it simplifies everything as well because then you can do everything from more of an intuitive, like we're saying, like trusting the body, more intuitive than having to figure it out like on a mental level, with courses and working it out. It's like the more um that we get in touch with the body, that's the power of it, like getting closer and closer to the sensations, being more and more with it. It's everything starts to it's not always obvious, but that intuition becomes more accessible, basically. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I think the self-judgment and self-criticism was a huge one for me too. I
Mm.
used to self-harm myself, which was
Right,
awful.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, so there was so much self-hate, and I think all
That's intense. Yeah.
that had to that had to come up to the surface, and I've
That's the
learned to
thing.
let
Yeah.
yeah,
That's going to play out in all sorts of behaviors as well. Like all these kind of ways that we need to
yeah,
perfect diet, this or that. It's like, again, once we really unlock what's underneath it, which can be really intense self-hatred, it's like, that's when like you just see all of that was on top of the repressed emotion. It's all coping
yeah,
mechanism strategies, because the last thing, and we're so afraid of it. We've been so conditioned that you can't sit there and be with the experience of I hate myself, like, and really go into
yeah,
that experience. um but I
yeah,
I had that come up for me as well. Like that was kind of after like the shift, like out of illness. But that's why I said like it just plays out differently for people, where I was like so much of the deep energies and emotions were coming up after that. And I remember sitting with self-hatred, and it was just like, wow, like this is, why people like commit suicide and these kind of things. Because like
Oh,
if I was like, if I go into or like do horrific things in the world as well, like if I go into this, what is the experience of this energy? It's just like intense self-hatred, just like wants to kind of obliterate itself. Um,
yeah.
and it's like you almost have a reverence for the power of these kind of experiences, because this is something that Angelo said as well, which I think is really beautiful, is when you're actually being with these experiences, you're giving space to these energies that people just pass on to one another. Like people, when you're repressing these emotions, you're acting it out onto somebody else, and now this really intense energy is just getting passed around until it does something really horrible in the world. And then people that are like open and going through this process, you're like holding a space for something that nobody else can hold space for as well. So it's
Yeah,
really
that's very
powerful.
true, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
everyone's just reacting, everyone's just,
exactly. And
oh, it's your fault. Nah. Yeah, yeah, you
it's
see it
it's
everywhere.
just this like basically it's like this energy that's moving around, like somebody's gotten like you know insulted by somebody else, and then it makes them feel this way, so then they pass it on to the next person, and they pass it on to the next person.
Yeah.
And this is also why actually as kids we take on all of this kind of stuff, um, because uh, you're the closest to like unconditioned source when you're a child, right? You don't have an identity, you don't have that, and you're like unconditionally open to experience, so you just kind of take it all in until you're ready to process it later on in life.
Yeah, yeah, because it just kids are so innocent, aren't they? They're
Exactly. It's that
gonna,
innocence, and
oh,
you
it's my fault. Okay,
yeah,
yeah,
and you take it on. I saw a beautiful interpretation of this on Instagram. Um, this guy saying like, if you were source, right, the divine, what would you do with everybody's pain and like repressed stuff? You would you would say, I would take it on, right? Source would take it on and say, like, it's unconditional, you'd unconditionally accept it, I'll take it on. And then you look who in the human form is the closest to that unconditional innocence, and it's like it's children. So that's why children are so um unconditionally open and accepting. And I think like with each generation, we're processing more and more of the stuff that the previous generation couldn't process and the previous generation couldn't process. So I thought that was
oh,
a nice
yeah,
way of understanding it. Yeah.
wow, it's so true, isn't it? Like, and animals too, pets, and I've
Yeah.
got 3 cats, and I just don't know how people can be cruel to like any animal, but
Yeah.
it's the same with children too, because they're the innocent ones,
Yeah.
they're not gonna yell back at you or, fight back. So yeah, and I think I look back at my mum and dad, and they're very repressed, very
Yeah.
repressed in emotions, and especially dad, and mum just ran away from everything and
Yeah.
just, yeah, turned to alcohol and medication, and oh, that's another thing I'm trying to slowly get off is medication. Yeah. I've
Okay.
been
Yeah.
on antidepressants for 25 years, so
Okay.
I've actually spent the last year and a half just really reducing it really
Yeah. Yeah.
slowly. That's another big thing to
Yeah.
to get off it. I'm on a really low dose now, but
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
That's also gonna like open us up to a lot as well that we hadn't been experiencing for a long time. So
yeah,
um
yeah, because that just
yeah.
pushes it all down, isn't it? The
Yeah.
antidepressant
Yeah,
just,
exactly.
oh,
Like I understand,
yeah,
like I feel like it can be a tool for people at a certain time, but I think just understanding, um, yeah, for yourself as well. Like there's just this boiling pot of so much that's kind of um this period. Like it's a lot of stuff from a long time. So um,
yeah.
it's natural for the body to be overwhelmed. Yeah,
Yeah. Plus, I want to really feel things. So I don't want to
yeah,
be pressed by the medication,
yeah,
but at the same time, you can't go off it too quickly because
yeah,
I've done that in the past. I've tried to go off like 3 times, but
yeah,
it was a nightmare. But yeah, you just got to do it. Yeah, really, really slowly.
yeah,
But
yeah,
learning,
exactly.
learning all this work, like learning how to have compassion for all your feelings and emotions
Yeah.
really helps coming off medication. Like,
That's the thing, actually. Yeah, it's actually the perfect to have this kind of understanding and openness with like all of the non-duality and the working with all these parts of yourself. Yeah, I think when someone doesn't have that, it can be really challenging to come off, because you're going to start to meet these things again, and that's like, now at least you can know that, okay, no, that's, it's scary and challenging, and there's a lot of resistance to it, but it's actually, it's like you said, you actually want to experience that, because you know that that's where the juice actually is, in the deeper realization process, is um in all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's really, and a lot of people can't get off medication because it's so
Yeah.
hard,
Yeah.
especially the longer you're on them, and they don't make it easy to come off,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really, yeah, yeah, not easy. God,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, but I remember coming off it. It's when I came off it, I was a couple of years ago when I last came off it, and for 6 weeks I was like listening to all this music, and it was
Yeah.
just joy for the first time. Like
Yeah.
it was that suppresses all the good stuff as
Yeah.
well. And it was like, wow, I was feeling more.
Mm.
And then eventually the anxiety was just so overwhelming. I was just shaking because it was
Mm.
just too much. My body hadn't processed it, I
Yeah.
hadn't been through all this purging yet. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no wonder, because I look back and I think everything that I've purged, imagine all that in your body, like your energy
Yeah.
body.
Exactly.
And
That's
that was
that's
intense
that's
stuff
what was
coming out.
there.
It was like throwing me off my knees, the energy coming out of my body,
Yeah.
the emotions was like, it was coming from like right in the lower belly, and it
Yeah.
was coming up like it was like I was vomiting energy
Mm.
sort of thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's like,
Yeah.
it was really scary, but that's what's in your body. That's what
Yeah.
you you suppress, what medication suppresses, all
Yeah.
that stuff. So I was like, wow. Yeah. So hopefully when I finally get off the medication,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be, yeah, too extreme.
Yeah. I think, yeah, as you said, that's a lot that's come out. So it'll be quite a big
Yeah.
difference, surely. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. You just wonder how much is left.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
I mean,
definitely a process. Yeah.
yeah, it's a process, and it is um there is an end to the repressed emotional content, but it's um you can't know when it is. Like, that's the thing. And also um I think anything that comes up is just um a pointer to something that was still there. So there's no such thing as
Yeah.
a setback in that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna have
Oh,
to go soon, but
yeah.
it was
Oh,
great
thank you
chatting with
so
you,
much.
Linda.
It was, yeah, I was keep watching. Oh, yeah, there was another video I was about to watch on the guy Josh Putnam, I think it was.
Yes, yes.
Josh Putnam. Yeah, I found that today, and I thought, oh, I better. It's a really long one, so I'm going to watch that tonight.
The one
Because
with me
they're
and
talking
Josh.
about, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. One on there. I don't know. It came up today, and I thought, oh, that's a good one to watch.
It
And
is a good one, actually. I think you'll like it. We kind of get
yeah,
into non-duality and chronic pain and kind of processing that kind of stuff. Yeah. I don't know. Have you seen
yeah.
any of his stuff before?
I just came across him only about like a week or two ago because I
Okay.
watched
Yeah.
Angelo's movie again, So
Oh,
Awake.
yeah. That's so good.
Yeah, and he was on there, and there was another guy, Eric Island. He's really
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah. I spoke with Eric
He's
as
got a
well.
lot of,
Yeah.
yeah, he's got a really lot of compassion,
He does. He's got a really beautiful
compassion stuff.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's all good. Thank goodness there's for the internet because we wouldn't be able to do this.
Right. It's quite a, like, it's got its pros and its cons. Like, it can be a little bit of informational overload a lot of the time, and content overload, but also we can connect just so much easier than like
Oh,
having to
yeah,
travel to like India to find the few people who have these kind of
yeah.
realizations.
It is, and there's
Yeah.
so many teachers out there. It's unbelievable how many
Yeah.
how many young people are just yeah pop up on YouTube, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. I think
It's
that,
more young people.
yeah,
Than,
it is. It's interesting. Yeah, I've reflected on that, and I spoke about it in one of my videos recently, where I think it's, in one sense, um, yeah, who knows? I mean, I think there's a whole energetic thing happening with like collective energy. But my reflection also was like you can the way technology is advanced, we can satisfy our attention so much easier and kind of like get into this state of dissatisfaction quite easily. And I think that drives people to wake up as well. You know, that was kind of my
Yeah,
experience is like, cool, you've got all these things that can entertain you, but there's something missing as well.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but also, who knows the deeper stuff of what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, that was great. Thank you so much. And
You're welcome.
yeah, I'll keep watching your videos and
Yeah.
yeah, keep on my path and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. You're going in the right direction. So just, yeah, it's like
yeah,
always just having that compassion for the all those parts. Yeah.
yeah. And trust. It's learning to
Try.
trust
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
yourself. Like
Absolutely.
yeah,
Um, yeah. This was one more thing that, yeah, I've always found really helpful when something new comes up that feels just like completely overwhelming or like, geez, like something new that's just too intense. I always find like a couple of weeks later or a little while later, I'm helping somebody through a similar kind of experience, and then it's like that's exactly why I had to um, go through that. So it's like that trust, like when it's happening, it just feels like too much, and then. But trusting, okay, there's some intelligence in why I have to experience this. And then literally like a week later, I'll be talking to someone. I'm like, if I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't be able to um, empathize with what they're going through, you know? So,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah,
It is
that
trust
trust
and
is
surrender.
powerful. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the simplest approach.
Surrendering. As I keep saying, just surrender.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Kyle. And
cool. I can send you this recording if you want as well, if you want to refer
oh
back
yeah,
to anything.
right.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And how if people are open to it, I'll post some of it on YouTube, but only I mean, what's your feeling on that?
yeah, yeah. No,
Fine.
it's yeah,
Okay,
open
cool.
to that. Yeah,
Okay, cool. I think
yeah,
it's quite helpful for others to just kind of relate as
yeah,
well. Yeah.
yeah. I find that a lot of people post sort of one-on-ones, and you
Yeah.
do learn.
Yeah. I don't know. Have you seen Emerson Non-Duality? I don't know if you know his channel.
Yes, yes,
He's been doing a lot of
yeah,
that, and I think it's really cool. Like it's you can get so much out of them. Yeah.
yeah. It is. Yeah, because you'll relate to what people are going through because you're going through the same
Exactly,
thing. So,
exactly. And you see all the
yeah,
different iterations of this, right? Like everybody um like has been in the past, I would say, looking at the few non-dual teachers talking about it online, but now you can just see everyday people kind of how it plays out in their lives as well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's great. Okay, thanks,
All right.
Kyle.
Cheers,
All
Linda.
right.
I'll
Um,
hear from you when I do. All the best.
yeah, thank you. Okay.
Cheers.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.